Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Nighttime friends. Okay, Anons. Here is one weird tale I decided to tell about the town I live in. Be me. I live in Poland, shithole of a city in the north, so close to Russian border you can go there and back in one day. Kętrzyn is the name. Pick related. If you don't know what it is, the place where the Charlie Chaplin lookalike almost got killed in his bunker, but the bomb was too far away and it only blew away his pants. The bunker is like 10 kilometers away from the city, in a forest, and to this day the city has a lot of German buildings in it since it was built by Germans. There is a giant fucking castle in the city dating back to 14th century and it was built by the Kętrzyn order. Don't know the English name, to fuck around with Poland back then. The old city is fucking beautiful, but it has some bad history, old building taken away by force from Jewish citizens. Bolsheviks who committed 200 assaults when they took the city during WW2 and massacred nurses in the city hospital. Giant old as fuck Masonic lounge, not in use of course now, it has been turned into a library, coffee place, restaurant, but back in the 17th and 18th century it was probably a daily place of meeting to these guys. There are still Masonic symbols all over it though. The city can't remove them cause history protection and all. Basically the city is very beautiful, but the communistic war crimes, mustache men past and Masonic shit makes it have a lot of stories around it. Let's start with the old tank. That's the one my grandpa told me before he died, rest his soul. In the middle of the city we have a giant fucking lake, beautiful and all but has strange story. Basically there was a tank stuck at the bottom for over 70 years. It ended up in there during WW2. The driver didn't knew where the lake was and he drove right on the fucking ice. Before he knew the tank was on the middle of the lake and the ice started to cracking beneath him. The story gets foggy here. Some say it is a Russian tank. Others say it is German. I never really searched for it, only heard it is real. Also nobody seems to know for sure if the tank driver drowned too. Grandpa used to say that the driver was there and he died too. Imagine death like this. Drowning in the fucking tank. In a cold fucking water. This is where the paranormal stuff begins. Be me. 13 years old, around 2014 and it's summer. Go around with friends, it's dark, we walk near the lake, it's lit so we aren't afraid and there are people around. Suddenly I hear something like a metallic thud coming from the lake. It sounds like metal hitting metal and something is cracking. Literally the sound that would be made by a tank sinking into the lake back then. We turned around, my friends and brother heard it too. Nothing. Nothing? There it is. A weird shape floating above the water surface. Half if we didn't see it, and don't know if because they don't see well in the dark or if it was because we just saw what we wanted. The thing vanishes into thin air shortly after we look. It's gone, the sound too. We were puzzled but we just went back to what we were doing, kinda scared though, but nobody wanted to talk about it. Asked my grandpa next time I saw him and he told me he saw it too a couple of times. He lived around 100 meters from the lake so he often went there for a walk. There was also a case of drowning, 2 people went swimming drunk and one didn't make it back on land. The other one claimed apparently that he saw how the drowned man was screaming and being dragged by something dark. The tank was apparently fished out a couple years ago. I haven't checked the city news ever since I moved out to different cities cause high school and all. There was nobody in the tank though, which according to some means that there was no ghost in the first place. But I believe that the body simply fell out, it must still be out there, cold and haunting. Story 2. This one is 100% real and I sometimes laugh at it actually. As all towns in Poland, our one also had the town hobo, smelly, mentally challenged dude. Always talked to himself and went around drunk or screaming at the sky. Sometimes he assaulted some kids too. It happened to the dude from my class in school when I was 10. The guy apparently wanted to stab him. One day I heard that he was arrested. Asked the person why. They say he had a dead body in his apartment. Apartment? How could he afford it? Well, apparently he couldn't. He moved in with his grandpa, he helped the old man, but he passed away one day. The dude didn't want the authorities to know, so he kept the body in the house and kept taking the money his grand was being paid. He was retired. One day, the police knocked on the door. They were told there was something smelly in the house, and they knew this hobo was never up to anything good. They say, "Hello Andre," which was his name. The man laughs and says hello back. Nervously ask him if they can talk with his grandpa. He laughs again and says yes. He leads them to his room, and oh my god. The body is beyond recognition. It's been a year. The policeman arrested the dude and threw him into a mental hospital. Last time I checked, he was out and is going around homeless doing his usual stuff. The stuff was the biggest news of the city for a solid half a year. I bet you can find news articles about it if you live in Kętrzyn. Story 3. The Wolf's Lair Bunker is a funny place. You can see all kinds of weird stuff from the 20th century, and you can also learn a lot. Be me, around 16. Uncle takes me and my brother, plus 2 of my cousins to the bunker. Tickets bought already. We go, it's still sunny outside. When we arrive it suddenly becomes cold. Cold like I mean very fucking cold. The rubble is super dangerous, but you can go around on your own, without any guides. So we of course fuck around and go exploring. The cold feeling, it's only worse when you get inside of the ruins and don't leave you. We were joking to each other about usual stuff. Then we hit the fence, there is no more to go. I wanted to go back to my uncle and younger sister, cousin sister, but the cousin who was older, and my twin brother who was bigger told me to stay. They said we should climb over the fence and see if there are any bunkers out there in the forest. I say it is fucking stupid, and I'm gonna stay here and wait for them. They don't even know how easy it is to step on an old fucking mine around places like this, especially places that are out of the area. They climb over the fence, I just look and watch how they disappear into the forest. Waiting. Finally I yell at them. Guys, did you find anything? Silence. Hey guys, did you find anything or are you banging in there? Still silent. Suddenly. Movement. Look deep into the forest, see something moving. Tall figure, dressed in black, with a hat. Holy shit, it's a German fucking soldier. But, odd. Dude is very tall, unnaturally tall. Like 2.5–5 meters tall. 8'2". Black, the face is also jet black. But the clothes are recognizable. He just stood there, looking into the forest, looking around sometimes. Seems like he didn't notice me. Shit bricks and just stand there looking horrified. The fucking humper monkey ghost suddenly walks away and disappears behind trees. I stay there analyzing what the fuck just happened. 5 minutes later my brothers are back. They're disappointed, cause there was only one small bunker with random bottles and neo-mustache men graffiti in it. Never told them about it. I am already a schizo, so I don't think they would believe me. Story 4. The fucking sky. There is something so fucking odd about sky in Kętrzyn. It happens mostly around the region of Mazury, northeast Poland. Basically the clouds seem to be a lot higher and take weird shapes. I move a lot between my town and the one I study in, so I can really compare it. The sky is not a normal blue. I know this, I know colors, I study in art school as a graphic designer. The sky is not fucking blue in here, it's more like dead blue, it's oddly mixed with gray. The clouds are weird too, the shapes are not soft and normal, they are more like a chopped wound in the sky. It can be described, but the sky above Kętrzyn is just fucking weird. The clouds often take human shape when the sun is going down. shapes of fire when it's rising and shape of animals and weird symbols during night. I know all this because I was fascinated by it when I was taking walks as a kid. I have watched it my whole life. I can tell you it's not normal. I have a theory that it is because the Mazuri region has a lot of lakes and rivers. Maybe they somehow affect the clouds above? But how? The sun is also weird, more shiny, and it turns blood red sometimes when setting down. The most horrifying thing I saw was when the sun turned crimson red at the sunset and got covered by a giant wall of dark, black clouds. It looked like this scene from Lords of the Rings where Sauron is looking from beyond his army and this giant fucking gate of Mordor. I was literally scared looking at it. It was like a nuclear explosion, except blood red. People on the streets were also staring into it like zombies, looking scared as well. Even my teacher at school, a woman who taught everything about art, agreed with me that the sky in here is super fucking weird, both the color and the clouds. Pick unrelated, but it's pretty close to what you can see here almost daily.
Be me. Currently I live in Poland, Silesia. In my town, there is an abandoned restaurant. From what I heard, is that the owner self-ended himself because of personal problems, but I guess that it'll remain as a theory. Decide to meet up with friends. Drive down a local pizzeria. Eat food with them. Start heading to the abandoned restaurant on our bikes. It was set in a forest, so we had to carry our bicycles around. Arrive at the location. We searched around the abandoned building. Found some spray cans, knives, pans, plates, all that stuff. We head to the top floor. It was all charred and burned down, probably because some hooligan set fire over there. Find more spray cans. Decide to go to the basement. I, as the brave kid, go first. This is where the shit begins. All around you see arcade machines, PS2s, computer monitors, printers. We got pretty excited about it. We decided to take the PS2 console. Someone leaves it. For around 10 minutes we were trying to find the console. Find it. It's getting pretty late. Decide to head back. I forgot to mention that there is also a window in the basement, which can be used as an entrance. I head to the window. I am dead fucking serious. There was some sort of black creature running in front of me. It could not be a dog, it was too large to be one. I told the squad about what I saw. They don't seem to believe me. We start heading back home when one of our friends is gone. A part of the team goes back to the restaurant searching for him. Me and my pal wait near the train tracks because that's where the exit is. They head back with the friend. Go to the store, then head home.
A little hazy on this one, but whatever. Here's a story my mother told me of when she was a child. Poland, some small town, Stawisky. Kind neighbor. Let's call him KN. Recently died after being sick for a while. The mother is too young to understand that, about 6 years old. Neighbor was a family friend, knew my grandparents well, so he was trusted and occasionally babysat my mother. One day, my mother was outside playing with friends. Sees KN outside his house waving to her. She walks up to him and asks how he is. He replies that he is feeling better and that he must go away, and asks my mother if she wants to go along with him. Mother said no, and wanted to continue playing with friends. She only realized the gravity of the situation years later and told my grandparents about it. Mother almost got literally spirited away.
I live in Poland, near the border with Ukraine. In my town, in the 13th century, people found out the city lay on chalk. As it was a pretty valuable resource back then, it was begun to be dug out regularly by most of the citizens. Not to bother themselves with making a single entrance and having to walk to it later every day. People just dug from their basements and sold the chalk to other cities. After some time the tunnel net was connected to almost every house in the city and to every public building to have better access to the chalk, to use it as a shortcut or in case of being attacked by the Russians. With such a massive scale of digging under the city, accidents happened on a regular basis. But of course, we don't need any security because we are Slavs. Lots of people died in the chalk mine because of the walls collapsing, and also war prisoners were kept there and tortured, so it was believed to be haunted. Also lots of people were murdered there because it was a nice and lone place to get rid of a body. But the chalk mining was not abandoned until the net of tunnels spread under the whole city, had 5 levels, and even reached neighboring cities in the 19th century. The mine tunnels saved lots of people from the Russians, but everybody who was there knew it was not a good idea to wander too far in them, as people who once get lost in there never come back. People who have worked there claim to be constantly hearing moans and screams. Also there's a legend about a ghost that lives there and is a protector of the city. Nowadays the tunnel net is approximated to hold the length of 40 kilometers, but is inaccessible. Officially there's a tourist trip in there, but it's only like 500 meters, and you gotta go with a guide as it is very dangerous because of the slippery chalk water floor and deep water wells. My first time there was spoopy as fuck, even when we were in a 30-person group.
My mom told me this story that she said happened sometime in the 20s. My great-grandparents were from Poland. They were named Joseph and Josephine, born on the same day and died within a day of each other. Which is interesting in itself. But my great-grandmother had a sister with a chronic illness that was most likely lupus, as it seems to plague the women on the Polish side of our family, along with hypothyroid. She was brought over along with her husband to live with my great-grandparents. She was pregnant at the time and got very ill and died shortly after the birth of a daughter. Her husband was despondent and went back to Poland, leaving the baby in the care of my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother kept having nightmares about her sister coming to the house and demanding her baby back. It got so bad that she put crosses in all the rooms and sprinkled holy water everywhere. According to my great-grandmother, the sister appeared in the house to her at some point as well and told her to give her back her baby. The next day, the baby, who had been in a bassinet in the kitchen by the wood stove, was found dead. After that my great-grandmother was never bothered by her sister's ghost again. My great-grandparents died sometime in the 60s, long before I was born. My grandmother never told me this story, only that her mother had twin girls at some point who lived for 2 days. I am not sure if that was before or after the death of the other baby. But I think it was after, as my grandmother was born in the mid-20s and my Uncle Joe was born in 1910. He was around 10 or so at the time of the death of the first baby and already had a job. I believe I was told he was just coming home from work when the baby was discovered dead and remembered the whole incident very well. I was not able to ask him as he had already died by then. Plus for the last few years, he was senile anyway.
Alright, here's my story. It's not really scary, but when I was a kid I was fucking terrified when I thought about this. I live in the Tricity, Poland, in one of those wacky small suburban neighborhoods built in the previous decade. On the southern border, there's a few old huts that were probably built here in the 50s. Not really sure, Dazu, but it looks terrible. I mean, it's almost like slums. It's a few poor, and very mean, families, living together in 2 or 3 small houses. On the east from our neighborhood there used to be a long, but narrow meadow with a hill. On that hill there was an old workshop, looking similar to one of that poor houses. I used to hang out with other kids there, looking for clues as to what resides there. All across the district, kids told stories about this place. On Christmas Eve at our school, One guy told me that his friend went there and saw a granny crying after the Halemba mine accident and an old guy with an axe. After that, me and other kids finally decided to break into that building. I gathered a few other kids and we went to the hill. One of the kids found a large stone and broke a window with it. We heard a voice from the inside and, terrified, we ran away, only to try it again next week. I actually don't remember how, but we managed to open the door. The inside was full of trash. In one room there was a desk and lots of papers. We found a door to the other side of the hill. The house was as wide as the field and blocked the way to the other side, and went outside. After a while we decided to go back, because it started getting late. Just when we were leaving the old house, 3 teenagers approached us. They just looked at us and one of them took out a knife. We quickly ran back to our neighborhood. Sometime later we found a dead cat with its guts removed. And after some more time, the house was burnt down. Just like that. Now there's a new block of flats being built, after about 6 years since it was destroyed. I always wondered what happened to these wannabe Satanists. A few weeks ago, I met a girl that used to live in my town. She said she heard stories about Satanists in my district. I should have asked if she knows more about it. She was clearly unhinged, though. Rambling about being a messiah and how people here do not understand in what existential danger we are right now. But that's a totally different story. Well, that's not the only weird thing that happened in my city. There's a woman that believes the Ark of the Covenant is hidden under one mountain. There's a story that a UFO crashed in the sea in the 50s, etc.
Black Volga. Polish, Czarna Wolga, refers to an urban legend widespread in Poland, Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, and Mongolia, mainly in the 1960s and 1970s. It was about a black, in some versions red, Volga limousine, with white wheel rims, white curtains, or other white elements, that was allegedly used to abduct people, especially children. According to different versions, it was driven by priests, nuns, vampires, Satanists, or Satan himself. Children were kidnapped to use their blood as a cure for rich Westerners or Arabs suffering from leukemia. Other variants used organ theft as the motive, combining it with another famous legend about kidney theft by the KGB. The legend surfaced again in the late 20th century, with a BMW or Mercedes car taking the Volga's place, sometimes depicted with horns instead of wing mirrors. In this version, the driver would ask passers-by for the time and kill them when they approached the car to answer. In another version of the legend, they died at the same time a day later. In the Soviet Union, the Volga was the most expensive car, and black Volgas were reserved for government use only as an assigned automobile for party officials.
Hello. First, let me give you some backstory. I live in Poland in a village near a small city. The village is big, with more than 2,000 inhabitants. The standards of living are not bad and most houses look nice. Except houses near abandoned railway stations. Why is the railway station abandoned, you may ask? It's because trains aren't really that popular anymore after the Soviet Union collapsed. There wasn't really anything wrong with this place, it was very climatic and a little mysterious. I used to spend a lot of time there when I was a kid. And here my story really begins. I will continue my story in my next posts and I'll post images as proof as well. Story time. 8 or 9 years ago I was walking with my buddies along railway tracks. We were casually chilling out, talking and stuff like that. Then one of us, maybe me, maybe not, saw a small bone between the tracks. Normally we would ignore that shit, but somewhere around this time we were really into mysterious and cryptic stuff. You know, cryptids, mysterious cases of people vanishing, etc. So we've taken the bone and swore to solve the case. On the next day we came into the same location with plastic bags and a shoebox to store evidence. Our first step was to establish some kind of headquarters, where we could meet, share our ideas and hide evidence without bringing it to our homes. We've chosen to abandon the railway station, but it was a high school's favorite place to get drunk, so this idea was quickly abandoned. But near the railway station was a small area surrounded by some kind of stone wall, around 7 feet tall. There was a lot of grass inside, but it wasn't very high, so we quickly managed to make it to the other end of the area, and there it was. 2 big blue bags filled with bones stuffed in the corner of the area. These bones were much larger than the one that we previously found on the tracks. We stood there for like 10 seconds, stunned. Then, one of us picked a few bones. One of the bones was a shoulder bone, I remember that much, and put it into his shoebox. Obviously, after doing that, we ran away. After discussing what the fuck did we just encountered, we decided to put the shoebox under few rocks near the abandoned railway station and call it a day. On the next day we came to the abandoned railway station once again, but our shoebox wasn't there anymore and it was really well hidden. We got scared by this and the case was abandoned. But it isn't the end of the story because I've finally managed to went there again. Okay, it's finally time for the main part, my today's expedition and photos. So I've been browsing X for few weeks and it reminded me of my encounter with bones many years ago. So I went there again, but the landscape was kinda different than I remembered. First thing, there was like 7 or 8 areas surrounded by walls, so finding the right one was quite a task. Second thing, nobody really gives a shit about this area, so nature has taken over. The grass is now much higher, few things has collapsed. Third thing, abandoned railway station was demolished, there's only a foundation left, as I found out later. So I've lost my main orientation point. But it didn't discourage me and I've kept checking one area after another, taking photos of graffiti, shattered bottles, empty packs of cigarettes, etc. After something like 45 minutes I thought to myself, the bones were surely moved many years ago. There's no chance that we were the only ones to find them. But I've got to check out one last area. First strange thing I've noticed. The grass there was kept in order, where in other parts the grass was around 2 to 3 feet long. When I was around halfway to the other end of the area, I've found out leftovers from quite a few fireplaces, a few empty plastic bottles and a clean blue plastic bags. The bones were packed to the same bags, laying on the ground. These things were very close to each other. But I've finally made it to the other end. But there wasn't a stone wall there. It was a brass fence. I didn't remember a brass fence being there when I first visited this place 9 years ago. What's even more curious, a part of this fence was missing. The hole was big enough for an average human. But there wasn't any bags filled with bones there. I was about to turn back when I looked on the ground. There were bones laying there, very close to the hole in the brass fence. Quite shocked, I've taken a few photos and turned back in haste. When I was walking back to my place, I looked at my shoes. They were covered in shit, literally. And it must have been quite a large turd, definitely not left by a small animal. But we don't have large animals here, except a few head of cattle. So yeah, this is it. I'll now post pictures of the bones and other stuff that were there.
The thread with the pictures is in the description instead of the video in case those bones aren't from an animal.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.